Hello, dear friends. It's the third stream connected with the Iranian checkmate. This chess play is underway between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. So let's start with the ethnic composition of Iran, and we'll see what kind of service could be used by two guys, Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. I will shed some light on this topic. Sorry, a little bit. Oh gosh. Just a moment. It's a little pause.
Ethnic factor above political conventions.
Good.
Trump's almost peaceful atom for Iran. After 3 to 4 weeks of a brilliant war against the mullahs of Iran with their repressions and threats over the last 47 years, Trump is feeling for the honor of peacemaking precisely among secular Persians, and not in the environment of Persian Shia, although they are hostilely disposed against the rabid Arabs and Azerbaijanis of Iran. Those stubbornly believe in their oil and gas power as a means of bargaining about peace and cooperation. In the USA, long before Trump 47 and unsuccessfully, they planned to bestow upon moderate Persian Shia the peaceful atom, not on uranium, which worries Israel. The talk was and is about atomic reactors, not on uranium, but on thorium and salts. They are not suitable either for nuclear attacks or for dirty nuclear terrorism. Initially, both the preservation of the mullah's authority and power and Shiaism as the basis of the Constitution of Iran were implied. But over all this there would be possible, along with orbital monitoring by the IAEA, now also some kind of cybernetic umbrella of the U.S. Israel. Trump 47, with the consent of the PRC, could deploy it over the new head of Iran, mainly against provocations from the fanatics of Persians and non-Persians, first of all Azerbaijanis, Arabs with Kurds ousted from power, with their collective oil and gas club, as against the new authority in Tehran under guarantees of peace to it from Trump and Xi. But Trump and Xi postponed their meeting from April to mid-June because of some complications with the USA and Europe, which the petrocrats of the whole world took advantage of. And the coming to power of secular Persians with their stake on alternative to TEC fuel has slowed down, judging by everything. Non-Persians see in the peaceful atom among secular Persians a competitor to their oil and gas club in the distant perspective. In the ideal, new atomic reactors from the USA and the PRC, whether for Persian Shia or for secular Persians in power, will quickly crush the former bunches of wrath against Jews and Sunnis for the sake of profitable trade with them and the rest of the world. If since July 2025 lithium stock determining the cost of digitalization during Elon Musk's transition to aluminum, then the peaceful atom and solar energy will allow Iran and the whole world to get off the oil and gas needle without wars and sanctions. The problems with the seizure of the lithium with Donbass worth $12 trillion gave rise to military actions by Kiev and the Kremlin, and this strengthened the monopoly of the PRC on the world production of 75% of lithium batteries. At the same time, the widespread displacement of the all-powerful petrocracy with its oil, gas, and coal by digitalization clearly slowed down. But since the summer of 2025, President Trump has brilliantly united the interests of previously warring petrocrats and digitalcrats according to the Big Beautiful Law. Since that time, Elon Musk has switched in his digital production from lithium to aluminum and devalued the lithium with Donbase. An analogous process is possible in Iran too, with the transition of the new authority there from TEC to alternative energy. And then gradually, or most likely with acceleration, thanks to ITAI production, the oil and gas of Iran will cease to be an apple of discord for world energy and the development of ITAI business. With Trump, there is a turn from Pete Hegseth's strategy of deterrence by intimidation and inflicting defeat, deterrence and defeat, to the civilizational model of Mahatma Gandhi, make an enemy into a friend. And 47 years of repressions by the Shia in Iran with their anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism in the greater Middle East complicate this task, but do not cancel it. The USA has a powerful potential of the peaceful atom for replacing hatred toward the overthrown Persian mullahs with cooperation on the basis of ITAI means of development. But this is after the final defeat of the IRGC as the basis of the mullahs regime. So, Trump is ready to reforge his digital sword against the mullahs into a plowshare of cybersecurity together with secular Persians and power in Iran. Such prospects cannot be understood without taking into account the role of ethnic groups inside the TEC and atomic energy of Iran and outside it. Let us consider the ethnic composition of Iran: 61–65% Persians, 16% Azerbaijanis, 10% Kurds, 6% Lurs, 2% Arabs, 2% Balak, 2% Turkic tribes, and 1% others. Therefore, Trump in his peaceful nuclear project is counting on Persians as the majority in the country, long divided into ethnic sovereignties. It is precisely a confederal Iran that Azerbaijan, Turkey, Afghanistan, and Pakistan with their ambitious tribes dream of, but especially the Kurdistan divided among 5 countries. Opponents of a purely Persian state, if not united, then will be intimidated a grave Hegseth by the digitalization of the state apparatus and the military in Iran according to the standards of Trump 47. This is the main condition for the inflow of investments into Iran for its peaceful atom and solar energy, according to Elon Musk. All taken together will heal the wounds and grievances of the Shia for the military actions of Israel and the USA in 2025 and 2026. On the potential of Iran's peaceful atom, even Shah Reza Pahlavi created his strictly peaceful atomic energy in Bushehr, Natanz, for Tao. Up to now, Persians work there mainly, since the technical centers, Tehran, Isfahan, are Persian in population composition. Minorities, Azerbaijanis, Kurds, participate minimally because of the control by Persian ETHNOCRATS. But in the oil and gas sector with its share of 30% of GDP, located in Kurdistan, Arabs predominate, and on the Caspian Sea Iranian Azerbaijanis dominate. The extraction of oil and gas is carried out by Arabs and Lurs, while Persians previously sat in management and head offices. Approximately 10–15% of non-Persians in the regions of Iran are involved in the benefits from such energy on oil and gas. In its place comes the peaceful atom according to Trump's plan, if any. The role of neighboring Armenia to Iran has sharply increased with the peace pact with Azerbaijan under the guarantees of Trump 47 in August 2025. Armenians have a special role in Trump's peaceful atomic project for Iran. Firstly, Armenia itself is almost homogeneous, 98% ethnic Armenians, 1% Yazidis, 0.5% Russians, a little Assyrians and Kurds. This is reflected in the personnel of the Matsamer NPP. It gives 30% of electricity. After August 2025, the USA has concrete plans for Armenia on small modular reactors by 2027–2030. So far, the 2,000 employees of the NPP are 100% Armenians. In Iran, the largest Armenian community is concentrated in Tehran and its suburbs. This is up to 80,000 Armenians, or 2/3 of the entire Iranian Armenian community. in Isfahan with suburbs up to 30,000 Armenians, and so on. All this is the human factor in Armenia's participation in Trump's peaceful nuclear project, with Persians relying on the Armenian diaspora of up to 11 million people in 100 countries of the world outside Armenia, in Armenia itself up to 3 million inhabitants. And for 14 million Armenians in the world, there is a total capital of several tens, or even $100 billion. One can judge the total amount by the money transfers to Armenia of $5.98 billion. Many Armenians own IT companies all over the world and are considered more successful than Jewish and Indian ones. There is a self-assessment of the Armenian diaspora at $1 trillion at its disposal. In 2025, money transfers in the Armenian diaspora amounted to $6 billion. This ethnic and financial factor fits into Trump's trend of making Iran with a digital plowshare and peaceful atom. The same alternative suits Armenia itself, where there is no own extraction of oil and gas, only import and distribution through Gazprom Armenia, where Armenians work at 98-100%. Azerbaijan also fits into Trump's plans for the peaceful atom in Iran, and first of all to prevent kinetic wars between them. But they began because of shelling by some drones of Nakhchivan, the birthplace of President Ilham Aliyev. The population of Azerbaijan is 92% Azerbaijanis, 2% Lezgins, 1.3% Russians, 1.2% Talish and others. In the oil and gas energy, the same by ethnic composition. There is no atomic industry, no operating NPPs, only talks about modular reactors from the USA along with supplies to Armenia. If such supplies begin, the personnel will consist of 90-95% Azerbaijanis and a few Russian specialists. But in the oil and gas sector, with its 40% of GDP and 80% of exports, hundreds of thousands of workers, 90-95% Azerbaijanis, 5-10% Russians, Lezgins, Talish. There are foreigners at BP total as few technical personnel. A stake on the usual ethnocracy will not help the development of the atomic industry and IT/AI business. Alas, this is a consequence of the traditional policy of distrust in a multi-ethnic society. There is genetic rivalry for the sovereign security of each ethnos. Although today, probably, this is just a lack of interest in digitalization and IT/AI business as something frightening. Nevertheless, let us consider the prospect of transitioning NPPs from uranium to thorium in the United States, and later in Iran. In the USA as of March 2026, there is no full transition of NPPs from uranium to thorium. Although back in the mid-2000s thorium in the USA and the Russian Federation, among experts of Minatom and the Minister of Defense of those years Sergei Ivanov, was considered an alternative to uranium, more abundant, less waste and safer. A dirty nuclear bomb cannot be made from it. In 2026, in all nuclear powers, they are actively developing reactors on molten salt. Their fuel can be thorium or uranium in liquid form. These are reactors for generation IV NPPs, safer, more efficient. By the way, in the government of the Russian Federation, they calculated and adopted the state budget until 2042. It is unclear how it will be with the peaceful atom in the economy under the hegemony of petrocracy.
Right.
But in the USA, if we consider their games with peaceful atom with Iran under secular Persians, there's already something. Company Natural Resources in Texas will launch the first such 1 megawatt reactor in 2026. There is already an NRC license. The building is built. The DOE has already given the salt and highly enriched uranium. Such fuel is a mixture of salt with uranium thorium, but the start is on uranium and thorium. In perspective, there are other companies, Flight Energy, Terrestrial Energy, also their thorium reactors in pilot mode for 2026-2028. So far this is not a replacement for uranium, rather an addition. Uranium is still the main one. The DOE in 2026 invested billions in its enrichment. But if thorium takes off, In 5 to 10 years, it may become a real alternative. And Trump's deal with the mullahs of Iran will clearly accelerate this process to a couple of years or less. In the USA, they began to experiment with thorium for NPPs back in the 1950s-60s, Oak Ridge, experiments with MSR. Then in the 2000s, interest was revived because of safety and accumulation of reserves, possibly also for the deal on peaceful atom with Iran. As of April 2026, the key results for the implementation of such a plan by Trump are as follows. Natural Resources, Texas, Abilene Christian University, their MSR-1, 1 megawatt, on molten salt is almost ready. The building is built. The DOE allocated enriched salt in January. The NRC gave permissions. Launch is planned in 2026. This will be the first gen, the fourth reactor of the USA on liquid fuel. So far the start is on low-enriched uranium, 520%, with a subsequent transition to thorium later. Flag Energy, LFTR, liquid fluoride thorium reactor. This is a purely thorium design, in work since the 2000s. So far, there is no operating prototype, but with support from the state of Alabama on U-233, starting material for thorium, successful completion of the project is expected by the end of the 2020s. The overall progress in atomic energy is connected precisely with thorium. It is better than uranium in waste safety, does not melt like in Chernobyl, but more expensive at the start. U-233 or plutonium is needed as a starter ignition. The USA has already spent billions on uranium reactors by 2026. Thorium is the future, not now, as American nuclear scientists claimed before Trump 47. Trump does not believe them. If the corporation Naval launches the salt atomic reactor MSR-1 in 2026, this will be a breakthrough, but not a full replacement of reactors in US NPPs. Although the fact that there is already a Chinese thorium in experimental mode can quite accelerate the advancement of peaceful atom on thorium in the deals of Trump-47/48, both in Iran and in neighboring countries. The PRC leads in thorium. As of March 2026, there is a really operating experimental reactor there, TMSRLF-1 2 megawatt thermal power, on molten salt. This is the only operating MSR with thorium in the world, and this success belongs to Shia. Why? What are the common incentives for the PRC and Trump-47/48 in carrying out the Persian castling, including Central Asia? This is a negative attitude toward political Islam. Beijing previously limited the political sovereignty of Uyghurs and other Islamists in the PRC and abroad by control over non-peaceful atom on uranium. His distrust is removed by thorium and salt in atomic reactors of the PRC. The speed and onslaught of Beijing stimulates Trump as well. In the PRC, they launched in 2023 October, and full power of those reactors was already in June 2024. In October 2024, thorium was added for the first time to an operating reactor. November 2025, world record. The Chinese successfully grew uranium-233 from thorium-232 right inside the reactor. This is the first real confirmation of the thorium cycle in action. Plans of the PRC, by 2035, to produce 100 megawatts, and then begin commercial distribution. In the PRC, 90% of components are Chinese. Thorium in NPPs of the PRC is not fantasy, but already data on the operation of a real reactor. In general, the PRC as of April 2026 is the only country where thorium in a real reactor is already working, and not on paper. TMSRLF-1, 2 megawatt thermal, molten salt in Gansu province. The idea was realized in November 2025. The Chinese grew uranium-233 from thorium-232 right inside, under irradiation, and thereby closed the cycle. Thorium turns into fuel by itself. without external uranium after the start. So, the liquid salt reactor (MSR) is a compact reactor, turbine, heat, even hydrogen and desalination for commercial development in the perspective of the Arabian Peninsula, at a minimum. Why are the Chinese ahead? The state invested billions since 2011. No bureaucracy as in the USA before Trump 47, built in 3 years, launched quickly. Plans, by 2035, 100 megawatts for demonstration in the Gobi Desert, then commercial prospects as well. The Chinese have thorium for centuries ahead. Under Trump, the USA still can make peaceful atom on thorium, while the PRC already has it. Are there financial possibilities for other countries to replace uranium with thorium in the reactors of their NPPs? In Europe as of April 2026, alternative energy is flourishing. This is mainly wind and sun, which have already overtaken coal with gas. In 2025, wind turbines and solar panels gave 30% of electricity in the EU, and fossil fuel, from the RF, for example, 29%. Growth continues. Solar plus 26% per year, wind too. Here are typical farms: offshore turbines and hybrid parks in Sweden and Germany. Hydropower, HPP, lithium batteries and NPPs are also in play. France is building 6 new reactors, traditional, on uranium, but thorium is not used massively yet. There are prospects. Danish Copenhagen Atomics in 2026 is testing a critical experiment on molten salt with thorium in Switzerland, PSIA, and they signed an agreement on thorium supplies from Norway. This is a step toward a new energy chain in the EU, away from the TEC of the RF and Kazakhstan with Azerbaijan. They planned the first commercial project on thorium by 2030. Dutch Thorizon is also on thorium as a pilot by the mid-2030s. Investments in this are risky, but the EU gives grants and the market for thorium reactors is growing at 13% per year. Now about investments in thorium in Central Asia, China, Japan, USA. The PRC dominates before Europe. In Kazakhstan they won contracts for the first NPPs in 2025. Russia is also in the game, but Beijing is ahead. Here is how the construction of new NPPs in China looks in perspective for export. Thorium in China in the Gobi Desert, and in Central Asia so far ordinary NPPs on uranium. Japan with the USA, in March 2026 discussed a nuclear project in a package for $550 billion Westinghouse, but this is for their chains on uranium, and not on thorium. The USA is still focusing on critical minerals, and thorium here is secondary. If thorium comes to Central Asia, then not from the EU or USA, but from the PRC and RF. They're already there. The RF has thorium reserves in the Tomsk region. But all this is while Trump has not persuaded Iran to peace with compensation for damage by supplies together with the PRC of lithium solar panels and his mini reactors and NPPs on thorium without threats to Israel. Moreover, Trump will do this quickly relying on AI calculations and without red tape on Capitol Hill. Europe has energy provision for its low-power ITAI production on renewable fuel from sun, wind, rapeseed and tidal water. Thorium as a commodity for the growth of cryptocurrency does not suit the EU and the British, since their banks are stuffed with petrodollars of the global south, Kazakhstan and other ex-USSR countries. For them thorium is their financial enemy. They care more about uranium for self-defense, as Zelensky demands for Ukraine. Prospects for thorium exist in Europe, but so far small, and all until the time when the Persians of Iran do not begin to use it together with the USA, which I will say further. I believe not much now depends on Iran with thorium from Trump and investments in thorium from Japan. It is ready to update its NPPs on uranium with thorium through such a powerful partnership as the secular Persians of Iran and the USA with Trump-47/48. Why do I have such confidence? The whole point is in the reliability of any strategic partnership with the USA, where AI calculates long-term benefits from thorium in the energy servicing of ITAI business by 2030 plus years. Moreover, I do not exclude that Trump and Xi at their meeting in May-June will also agree on thorium in Iran on the condition that for them after the pacification of Iran Central Asia will also become a test range for peace through energy power. With such a prospect from the Persian castling, the cost of the lithium of Donbass, which is still under fire from Zelensky and the Kremlin, Europe will easily switch to thorium to join the group of investors from the USA, Iran, Japan and the PRC after Trump's negotiations with Xi already this summer. The prospect for Donbass by the summer of 2026 is the restoration of coal as the basis, and not a sharp transition to thorium. Europe really looks at thorium. Copenhagen Atomics in Denmark and Switzerland are testing prototypes. Norway supplies raw materials, but these are still experiments. The first commercial reactors are expected by 2030. Donbass is a coal region, and Russia positions it as a strategic reserve of old schoolers in politics and science, if we take all the energy of the TECs of the RFCIS. Meanwhile, in the coal sphere of Ukraine and the RF, where petrocrats have entered and do not leave, here is what is happening. Coal mines are being restored even during the SMO, and extraction has returned to pre-war level. Some investors are entering Shekeglovskaya Glubokaya since January 2026. Coal, 5% of all reserves of the RF, plus rare earth metals, 200 million tons, among which one lithium is worth $12 trillion. This is not competed with by oil with gas on the shelf of the Black Sea with its dangerous logistics during the SMO. Kiev declares that energy is being restored, and Moscow strikes at it and says, no. They say, you Ukrainians will not have heat and light until 2027, and then we will see your capitulation. Yes, thorium in Europe is in Denmark. From there it can squeeze out of the minds of politicians and military of the EU and Great Britain their faith in the omnipotence of oil, gas, coal and even lithium. After all, the variant of Iran and the USA with their thorium for AI and business and defense is already being tested. For example, in Denmark, there are compact container atomic reactors, easily assembled like Lego and without chances to serve the goals of dirty nuclear terrorism. Donbass with Zelensky or without him will go to a deal with Trump on lithium, understanding the benefits from the union of Iran and the USA on thorium. But the problem is that coal is needed now, export, metallurgy, energy reserve, and thorium and lithium without investments because of the SMO is a mirage 10 to 15 years ahead. Alas, so far there is exactly such logic among politicians and military of Ukraine and the EU NATO. But only until the moment when the RF, PRC together do not decide to build qualitatively different NPPs of the thorium with salt MSR type. They are at the basis of the potential peaceful deal of secular Persians under the new authority with Trump-47/48. Events in Hungary and Kazakhstan since March 15 are pushing old schoolers in Europe and the RF toward refusal of the services of petrocracy. It can be squeezed out by coordinated through AI from Trump actions of digitalcrats. In particular, Trump's deal with secular Persians in power on the creation of NPPs on thorium supposedly for a sovereign Shia ITAI industry. The new energy of Europe for a full refusal from Russian gas by the end of 2027 together with oil from the RF. A planned transition to LNG from the USA, Qatar and Norwegian gas is underway. Hungary and Slovakia are still sitting on Russian raw materials through the Druzhba pipeline, which goes through Ukraine. In January 2026, a Russian drone struck at that infrastructure in Ukraine and the flow stopped. Slovakia released reserves for a month. Hungary has more storage and alternatives with pipelines, but they are in the open air without air defense against drones. The consequences of the USA's war in Iran for Europe are heavy. Fuel prices are rising, and therefore peaceful atom on thorium is becoming more tempting. This is so if the new government of Iran under Persians is for peaceful atom together with the USA, PRC, and not with Europe with its oil and gas, mother's milk, from the CIS. Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late Ali Khamenei, since March 8 is the head of Iran, and the IRGC and the army swore allegiance to him. Although military professionals are also loyal to Pahlavi too. The completion of combat actions of the USA and Israel from the sky is approaching. Precise strikes on the TEC in Tehran created the effect of an ecological bomb. This is fire, black smoke, toxins in the air. Peaceful residents complain of burning in the eyes, throat, black rain with acid. All this in the air, soil, water with accusations against Israel and the USA of chemical war, prohibited back in the 20th century. The oil and gas of Iran are vulnerable, as shown by 8,000 strikes of the USA and Israel. And against this background, atomic energy looks like an energy alternative. It is independent, does not depend on pipelines or tankers. And with such a hint after the burning oil in Tehran, Trump on March 10th also lifted his bans on supplies of oil from the RF. Like, create burning oil for your allies. The Persians of Iran have NPPs in Bushehr, Natanz for Dow, almost unharmed. There are 500 Russian atomic specialists there as a human shield. The new leadership of Iran is obliged to be not fanatical, but practical. If oil and gas are on fire, then atomic energy is a good way to survive. So far this is not thorium, but ordinary uranium at 520% enrichment. The ecological catastrophe in Iran is also a hint for the Russian Federation. See, oil kills under rocket and drone strikes, while atom is ecologically cleaner. So far in Iran, there is no transition to atom because of the smoke in Tehran from burning oil. But Pete Hegseth's logic is clear. Drive Iran into the peaceful atom under the control of the USA and, possibly, the PRC. As for the RF and Europe, they were not standing in that war. In USA as of April 2026, there is no direct preaching of Persians as supporters of peaceful atom. On the contrary, the official line of Trump is that Iran always wanted a bomb, and any talk about peaceful energy is a lie or a trick. This is a beautiful disguise for the collusion of Trump and Xi for disinformation of the DEMAREVNCHISTS of the USA. If in US media they mention peaceful atom of Iran, then skeptically, they say it is for energy, but we know the truth, to destroy the USA and Israel. Persians as a people in US media and social networks are considered only in the context of victims of the regime or actors of anti-government protests, but not as supporters of peaceful atom. In US media, there are videos with destroyed Bushehr, smoke, and the caption, "End of the Iranian nuclear program." Trump himself at briefings always says, "No nukes ever again," mainly for the Jewish electors of the USA and the population of Israel. In the process of replacing power in Iran, an important role belongs to the least fanatical, anti-Semitic religious Shia hierarchs, and relying on their oligarchs from non-Persians, the same Armenians. For example, as peaceful atomic specialists, they will present an alternative to Trump's public concept of peace through strength for their deal with Trump. All these reasonings of mine fit into Trump's revolution of common sense with his doctrine of zero trust of the Pentagon relying on AI. And also this is the result of a well-thought-out, selective simplicity for 95% of Trump's supporters inside and outside the USA. And so far, only 5% of supporters of scientific research according to data from Grok consciously stand for the transition from a natural fuel basis of security to cybersecurity on mini-atomic reactors of thorium and salt. This topic to be researched is waiting for its sponsors. Conclusion of my talks with Grok after 4 weeks of blistering rhetoric and military action against the mullahs and their repressive apparatus. President Trump is now dangling what he calls a peaceful nuclear atom, a limited civilian nuclear program for Iran, tightly monitored and stripped of any weapons pathway. This is not naivety. It is leverage. For 47 years, the Islamic Republic has weaponized threats, proxies, and enrichment while hiding behind the facade of civilian power. Trump understands the regime's playbook better than most predecessors. It responds to strength, not sermons. By combining decisive strikes on military targets with an off-ramp that offers economic relief in exchange for verifiable denuclearization, he is testing whether the mullahs can be coerced into a grand bargain or whether internal fractures will finally do the job for the U.S. security only. The core bet here is regime behavior under pressure. History shows that authoritarian regimes face incredible military and economic isolation often prioritize survival over ideology. Trump's approach echoes the maximum pressure campaign of his first term, but with faster kinetics and a clearer exit ramp. Less about regime change rhetoric, more about forcing the cost-benefit recalculation in Tehran. Old kinetics in warfare have been replaced with cybernetics in Iran with a bet on non-militarist Persians. The new atom reactors in question are not suited for weapons production. They are for electricity and medical isotopes, on uranium, not on theory and salt, as the saying goes in certain circles. They cannot fuel a bomb. What matters is the verification architecture, IAEA access, real-time monitoring, and snapback sanctions that bite harder than before. The U.S. has long planned for this scenario in quiet interagency work. The goal is not trust but enforceable restraint. Iran's economy is brittle. Oil exports, frozen assets, and the rial's collapse create domestic pressure points. A monitored civilian program could provide a face-saving way for pragmatists inside the system to argue for de-escalation, especially if paired with sanctions relief calibrated to performance. Initially, the mullahs and their ideological enforcers feared losing power more than anything. But the combination of orbital and cyber monitoring from the U.S. and Israel, alongside the precedent of the Abraham Accords and Gulf normalization, changes the calculus. Trump's Trump 47 framework, if coordinated with key partners including China, which has its own interests in stable energy flows, could isolate the hardliners who profit from perpetual confrontation. The real target is the collective security narrative in Tehran, the idea that confrontation with the West, Israel, and Sunni Arabs is existential. A deal that delivers energy infrastructure, trade openings, and reduced isolation could peel away parts of the elite and the street, particularly Persian nationalists tired of subsidizing Shia militias abroad while their own economy craters. Europe's role is instructive. The JCPOA's collapse and subsequent Iranian escalation showed the limits of European diplomacy without American enforcement teeth. Trump is effectively saying, the old multilateralism failed because it lacked credible deterrence. A new arrangement must be bilateral or minilateral, with the U.S. holding the whip hand on sanctions and Israel maintaining its qualitative military edge. The hardliners see the peaceful atom as a Trojan horse for regime erosion. They are right to worry. In the long run, genuine civilian nuclear cooperation, under ironclad safeguards, could accelerate Iran's integration into a more normal regional order, reducing the appeal of exporting the Shia revolution. Sunni Arab states, Kurds, and even segments of the Persian population have incentives to see a defanged Tehran that focuses inward rather than on proxy wars and death to America chance. From a pure realpolitik perspective, the sweetener for Tehran is survival with dignity. The penalty for cheating is renewed isolation plus targeted strikes. Markets will watch closely. Any credible deal would ease oil price volatility and regional risk premia. Failure would reinforce the case for containment and accelerated Iranian brain drain and capital flight. In an ideal scenario, new reactors built under international oversight become symbols of pragmatic coexistence rather than proliferation nightmares. Even if the mullahs resist, the offer itself exposes the regime's true priorities to its own people and the world. The dirtied up of revolutionary ideology meets the cold logic of power and economics. Trump is betting that self-preservation will eventually trump perpetual grievance, and that American strength, not weakness, is the best guarantor of a less dangerous Middle East. This is not idealism dressed as policy. It is coercive diplomacy with a positive sum exit if Iran complies. Success is measured not by hugs in Geneva but by verifiable limits on enrichment, reduced proxy funding, and a measurable decline in regional tensions. The alternative, endless sanctions evasion and shadow nuclear advances, is far costlier for everyone involved.
Well, that's it, guys. I'm waiting for your responses, and please tell me your perspectives of this peaceful atom for Iran and around the bigger Middle East. Now it's all over, and please send me your support, ideological, financial, or just advices. Okay, bye bye then.